The member from Fredericton South.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning through you to the Minister and her staff. I have a number of questions. Just a quick one on, well, I guess it fits into arts. So these questions are around the arts in this first phase here. The first question I had was, has there been any work with the industry to provide support in this budget to create outdoor performance spaces? Given COVID, we know the one of the sectors of the arts that's a hugely important sector in New Brunswick, socially, culturally, economically, that's been hit hard has been performing arts because of the lack of the ability to perform before audiences in many cases. But outdoors, there's some really tremendous opportunities, and I attended an outdoor performance last summer of the Atlantic Ballet, and it was excellent. And the outside performance facility was more than adequate. So has there been any work to build into this budget the ability to support the development of outdoor performance spaces for this summer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. We are absolutely working with this sector through a think tank we established a little earlier in the pandemic. We knew that in arts and culture, performing arts, the creation of art, people needed opportunities to offer what they, to offer their talents, I guess. So we created the think tank. Out of that came the Fresh Air program is one thing that we started last summer. We have doubled this summer, more artists, longer time. This is where you will find performers and artists at work in our provincial parks and attractions. That was an idea that came out of that think tank, driven by the arts and culture sector. And the member opposite mentioned the Atlantic Ballet. Absolutely, last year, the ballet was so creative in creating this beautiful outdoor experience for people, by the water to enjoy their performance. And we know that that the ballet will be offering that again this year with our support. They're going to provide, more shows and longer season. That was a true success for them last year. So we are working with this sector. We have adjusted programming, so people who have other ideas, and they are coming forward with ideas, ways that we can safely support them so they can safely perform outside or offer entertainment or painting experiences or whatever it is. People are really thinking outside of the box, if we can say that. And we're helping make these things happen through constant communications with health and public safety. Thank you.
So in the budget, is there specific monies allocated to support the creation of outdoor performance spaces and if so, how much? Because I expect you look at, we have a very rich arts community in this province, a huge demand for it. So I think of Moncton, I think of Bouctouche, Carquette, Edmundston, St. Andrews, St. John, Fredericton. So in many other places that traditionally have a high concentration of festivals, performance, and artists in their communities. So what has been allocated in the budget to expand the number of outdoor performance spaces available in the province?
Mr. Chair, thank you. And to the member opposite, thank you for the question. There's, throughout our budget, we have multiple programs that, where people can apply for help to support their ideas for outdoor celebrations and performances. We have our Arts and Communities. This is a fund, $282,000 fund that's available for outdoor festivals. We have our Recovery and Reactivation Fund of $300,000 in this budget. That is for that includes outdoor events as well that people can take advantage of. Our Fresh Air program, this is the program that we collaborate with Arts NB. $50,000 goes towards that program from our department, and this year is expanded in our parks and attractions that allow artists to perform and to paint. And we have our Strategic Infrastructure Fund, over $250,000. That again is another place where people can pull money from for these for outdoor activities. Thank you.
That doesn't, thank you. That doesn't strike me as a lot of money when you're talking about capital investment in infrastructure, in building stages and so on, when a 2x4 now is about $9. I asked the other day when someone told me that, how long was that 2x4? And he assured me it was only 8 feet. So that's an extraordinary cost. So thank you for mentioning these various funds, even though their budgets are low. I notice in the budget you have a budget line for COVID. So in that money for COVID, which you have $7.2 million, would that be a budget envelope that a theater company or a festival organization could apply to for assistance in making the upfront investments in building an outdoor or improving an outdoor performance venue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to first point out that the organizations we support, like the Atlantic Ballet, whether they are inside or outside, we continue to provide that support as we have in the past. So I just wanted to stress that. In addition, we do not, sorry. our COVID fund is not an infrastructure fund. It is to help organizations with operations, but it's not to build infrastructure or stages or buildings or any other type venues. Thank you.
Thank you. So to go indoors now for a minute, and I'm concentrating on this because so many musicians today in 2021 depend on income from performances, since the advent of streaming services has really reduced the income they once got from selling their music or shows in other ways, on CDs or what have you. So if we go indoors here for a minute. So if a private venue owner, or maybe it's a co-op, or maybe it's a local community organization, or what it is, but separate from a municipality, I guess is what I'm distinguishing it from, wanted to install some ventilation. Many of the most attractive performance venues are intimate, small, which is the worst for COVID, of course. So if they wanted to install ventilation to give that extra, as long as they're within the other rules, that install ventilation to give that extra level of comfort for their clientele, where would they go to seek some support to enable them to at least handle the upfront capital costs of installing that kind of infrastructure, making that kind of capital investment in their small performance venue? And maybe it's not exclusively performance, maybe it's also a small brasserie or bar or restaurant, but that's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our department doesn't manage an infrastructure program, but that would be a question for perhaps the Minister of the Regional Development Corporation. Thank you.
Through the chair to the Minister, thank you for that answer. I guess my question then would be, would the Minister be willing to commit to reach out to the Minister responsible for the Regional Development Corporation to encourage him or stress the fact that this kind of capital investment and support for our performance venues is essential to the recovery and the health of our arts sector?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, every opportunity we have as a department, we advocate for the people who, in our sectors that rely on us, and we consistently and often do sector reviews, both with RDC when they receive an application. We will they will ask us about the application, and absolutely we're supportive in all ways that we possibly can in encouraging a positive decision for people in this sector, and we do the same with ACOA applications. Thank you.
Thank you. L'Association acadienne des artistes professionnels du Nouveau-Brunswick conducted a couple of rounds of consultations with artists of all disciplines, arts, all types of arts, as well as cultural organizations, heritage organizations, once in June, once in October in the context of the pandemic, and made a series of excellent recommendations in a report entitled Maintenant agissons pour la survie du milieu des arts et de la culture. I'm wondering whether the Minister has reviewed the recommendations, documented its recommendations, and how they have appeared in her budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. Thank you for the question. We have received and reviewed the report and the, I believe, 87 recommendations, or maybe over 87 recommendations, and we have used those to help come up with our recovery plan, and however, we have asked that we meet to discuss very specifically more of the details, and we hope to have that meeting after main estimates in the coming weeks with the organization. Thank you.
It's good to hear that there's a meeting plan coming up, but Mr. Chair, through you to the Minister, can the Minister point to specific items in the budget that have been included as a result of implementing recommendations contained in the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess specifically in our budget, we have made, we have I guess we've been inspired in a way, I guess is the best way to say that, by, within these 87 recommendations, there were suggestions for things like, if there was a way for us to use our parks and attractions to allow artists to work, and that is something we're doing in our through our open air program this summer. As well, inspired by NB, that was an idea, a recommendation where artists were looking for new ways to sell what they had to offer, and as well in that in their recommendations, book buying policy to support our local authors. That's a recommendation that we have been working on, continuing to meet on. I met with the group last week, as well as the education minister, to discuss a priority to buy books written by New Brunswick authors. So there are several things we are implementing, and there are several more we want to look at in having that more direct conversation with PMB. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to shift to a couple of questions around the film, television, and I suppose to some degree stage productions. My understanding is, at least early on in the pandemic, television productions, for example, À la Val d'Ag, made in New Brunswick, created in New Brunswick, shot in New Brunswick, very successful television series, excellent, funny, that like others, were having difficulty getting insurance in order to operate their productions. Now, I don't know if that's something the department has helped resolve or still needs to help resolve. We know that in some other provinces, government has stepped in to manage the insurance coverage for television film productions that otherwise was difficult to get because of the pandemic. So has the department played a role here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're not aware, as we have a conversation here today, of any insurance challenges with the filming industry, but we will definitely inquire to see if if that is something that has come to our department. We work closely with the film producers, and even during COVID, we were incredibly proud of a project here filmed at New River Beach, Race Against the Tides, and that was, you know, if not the first, it was one of the first filming projects that happened in our country. It happened here during the pandemic at New River Beach, and we continue to work with film producers to develop a protocol for filming to be able to continue in our beautiful province during the pandemic and certainly well after. Thank you.
Given the relatively low number of cases in New Brunswick throughout the Maritimes, Nova Scotia certainly has taken advantage of that and attracted a lot of film production, television production in Nova Scotia and the Halifax area. And of course their tax credit system helps, but the appeal certainly was the ability for productions that have been traditionally done elsewhere to actually go back into production in Nova Scotia safely. Is the department doing any work to attract that kind of outside arts productions, which could be done in New Brunswick? We've got all kinds of great venues outside and inside, and it would be, it seems, a real opportunity. Nova Scotia sees that opportunity. Is the Minister's Department, through you, Mr. Chair, also attempting to seize that new opportunity?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you for that question. This is, when it comes to conversations with our film industry, it is very exciting because we have, we have a little bit of, I think we all take a lot of pride when we see our province on screen, and I think of years ago and Children of a Lesser God when it was taped at RCS Netherwood in Rothsay, and I think everybody watched that movie and they still, remember how that, that was so exciting at the time. We were, despite COVID, we've been able to distribute all of our grant money for film, and one of the films I had mentioned was the New River Beach project. There are several others like it, and I just wanted to maybe raise, the importance of these conversations. I had a couple of months ago had a Zoom call with producers in California. One of the writers of the Game of Thrones, she lives in is from St. Martin's originally, and she writes for the Game of Thrones, and she talked about this province and how the potential is so great because of the, not just the landscapes, but the, sometimes the haze or there's a lot of mystique and interest, different pictures that would really lend well to some certain films, and again, just our beautiful lands and our waters. So these are conversations that are very real, and they are important to us, and we are continuing to have those. And like Nova Scotia, we are doing, all that we can to draw filmmakers here and to support them. Thank you.
That's good to hear. Through you, Mr. Chair, the question then is in this fiscal year the intent to put in place an equivalent tax credit to what Nova Scotia has in place to ensure that we can compete on a level playing field?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly tax credit programs are the jurisdiction of the Finance and Treasury Board, so that, whether or not there's a new film tax credit or not doesn't lie with us. Thank you.
Well, it's true, it doesn't lie with you, but I don't know that the minister necessarily, he's a bright guy, but that he would think about this unless you brought it to him. So have you brought a recommendation to him to install such a tax credit? We don't want to be losing more and more of our filmmakers and artists and crew to Halifax when we could be seeing film productions made right here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely, it has been brought to the Minister of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess just a quick question. Your department's responsible, Minister's department's responsible for naming things, and so geographic features, in New Brunswick. And I'm wondering whether or not this year your staff will be able to bring forward the recommendation to restore the name of the St. John River to Wolastoq.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question, and we are aware of that request. However, it does appear to be a long process. The St. John River is one of the most significant geographic features in the province, and any evaluation process for a name change needs to be, requires public consultation of, consultation of both First Nations and the public. But in addition, the St. John River is identified as a pan-Canadian feature, and any potential change will need to be reviewed by the Geographic Names Board of Canada and will involve multiple government agencies, including the Canadian, U.S. federal governments, the state of Maine, and the province of Quebec. They'll need to be included in the evaluation as well. Thank you.
Members, it now being 12 o'clock, we're going to take a break till 1. But before we go, I'd